Hello and welcome to a bSDD webinar. This webinar is part of the bSDD Virtual Summit for Spring 2022. Thank you for joining. My name is Dan Little and I will be your moderator today. Today's webinar is titled Environmental Indicators and Relationship with BIM. We have 3 speakers, so the session will be split into 3 parts as you can see on, well, actually 4 parts as you can see on the screen. Our speakers are Hansueli Schmid, Frédéric Grand and Christoph Eichler. This webinar is scheduled to last 1 hour with an opportunity for questions at the end. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event within 24 hours. Before I hand over to our speakers, I would like to remind you that your phone lines will remain muted for the duration of this webinar. If you do have any questions or wish to make comments, please use the chat box in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. I would also like to bring to your attention the slide that's on the screen now, which says that buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent, and standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider and are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct on the screen. And with that said, I would like to hand over to our first speaker, which is Hansueli. And there's your presentation, Hansueli. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome to our presentation about environmental indicators and the relationship with BIM. The benefits of this approach for manufacturers and clients. We have 2 additional speakers today. It is Frédéric Grand and Christoph Eichler. First of all, I would like to introduce the topic. I had the chance in the last virtual summits to talk about the topic of environmental impacts and how we envisage to implement the topic. Since then, we reached first results. We have the indicators in the bSDD, and we can show you then first application of those information. First of all, the overview about the topic. We have different essential basic requirements in the construction product regulation. And one of that is the environmental impact of our building materials, which was not so far not really a main topic, but it becomes even more important. So what is the topic today? In general, we have many properties of construction products, but those standards, they are translated in different languages, but one language is missing. It is the language of the computer, that the properties are extracted from the standards and then really made machine readable. So that is so far industry associations work to pick up the harmonized standards and extract properties and bring it into templates for the products, so that algorithms can read those properties. What we did in environmental impact indicators, we worked together with specialists in LCA, and we extracted the different indicators in the European standard EN 15804. And we tried also to group these indicators to make sense. And we also added the different units and description coming from the standards. And also we have certain relations between indicators. For example, we have 2 indicators which equals which result in a sum of an indicator, and so on. Also, we tried to show this relation between the different values. So it's a large list of possible indicators where environmental impact can be measured, but we have certainly two most important indicators, which we all know. It's the energy, the primary energy, which is in different sub indicators. And we have also the global warming potential, which is the CO2 equivalent of different chemicals or so on. So how we approached the topic as an association. So I work, for example, for the Wood Association, and here we picked up the harmonized standards on wood, and then we transferred those properties on templates or a collection of properties to create templates. And then it goes in a first round of using those properties, and then we certainly have a feedback which has to be organized. So this is also something where industry associations play an important role to canalize a bit this feedback process into the common templates. Here we see also the important role of buildingSMART data dictionary. It is the common platform where different contexts meet each other and concepts meet each other, which has close relation with all the different standards and classifications. And then it's on the association to look on those properties and select really those ones who make sense to apply in a building model. Then it can go down further to the national context, where also national aspects of properties and labels and so on can be completed to the international level. And it can be delivered as a first solution. So you can combine products to components which have properties, and those information you can share via API, application programming interface, to softwares, or via IFC files direct to the CAD program. So when we talk about the LCA data, this is also something I showed already in earlier presentations, that you see the connection between the different levels of information. So you have, first of all, raw materials, then you have an LCA expert which assembles those properties for the products, and then it goes to the components, and in the end to the building. And it's actually what we're going to see today from Frédéric and Christoph. They doing that now in the building model with the data. Here another picture to see a bit the chain of information. We always have some raw materials with properties which are transformed in products with additional properties. Different products are combined in components, which have then also properties which are only assigned to components, and those result then in the performance of the building. Maybe here also a sketch to a bit show something about generic specific. So we have certainly the topic that we don't have always specific products with specific EPDs. We need also a generic foundation, basic information of products, even that we can apply even if this manufacturer has no EPD. So, for example, we have in Switzerland such a generic list of EPD indicators, and also in Sweden and other countries that will appear that we have generic materials, products, components, and they are represented the same way as specific materials. So we have then a smooth transition from generic to specific over the whole planning stages. So with LCA, the ecological aspect of life cycle analysis is certainly a big challenge in our time, that we really try to find a better balance between biosphere and technosphere, and use less non-renewable materials, or keep them then also longer in the life cycle. And BIM can help us, or based on BIM, we can then apply different algorithms which help us to analyze buildings and maybe break through some habits in construction, that we maybe rethink the way we construct, that we use less materials, or change some new renewable resources with renewables. So by that, I'm going to conclude. So far, we had mostly focus on the use stage of a building. There we have already high requirements, but the life cycle consists also of the production and disposal of the materials. And so we have to really look to the whole life cycle of a building, including the material and the performance in the use stage. And only the full picture gives us a really sustainable building, which is effectively reduce the impact on our environment. So that was the short introduction. I would like now to hand over to Frédéric Grand, which will show how we introduced this Excel file, actually we showed you before, into the bSDD, and then how it can be applied. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hansueli. So I am Frédéric Grand. I'm co-builder chief BIM data architect, and today I will explain you how was the journey to come from the different standards regarding your environmental indicators to finish at the end inside bSDD, to make them available and ready to be used in Open BIM format and in Open BIM workflow. So this is all about this journey, and as Hansueli told, the first step of this journey was to find the right standard, talking about life cycle analysis, environmental indicators, and so on. So Hansueli and his team, they've been working on checking what were the right documents to be aware of, and what were the right documents where to find the information they had to provide in a machine-readable way, let's say, following a standardized structure. So that was the first part of this journey. And the second one was to digitize this content. So first step, I find the information I want to make available as machine-readable things, and then I'm working on providing them in a digital way. So for doing that, we've been using Define, which allows us to apply the content quality methodology coming from an ISO standard, which is called ISO 23386, and also to structure this content following this standard. So first part, as I told you, we extract the indicators, then those different properties indicators are proposed by Hansueli and his team. So it's using the tool to say, hey, this is one indicator, this is its name, this is the definition. Maybe it has some translations. Then it has a physical quantity, it has a unit, it is connected to this group of properties, and so on. Then some experts are reviewing the content, checking if it's well structured, if we have all the right information to be provided. Then it's published into Define, and as soon as it is published into Define, then the content is available through an API, so usable by different softwares implementing this API, and it also can be shared or downloaded with other stakeholders. So When ready to define, so we have been through from the standard, checking the right information we want to make available. Then we use define to quality for quality insurance for this content. Then we need to provide it and push it inside bSDD. So that's our next step. So all this has been achieved. We have been using the API from define to create a new Excel file, in fact, which has been enriched by Hansueli with some more information. And from this new Excel file, we have applied some Python scripts to be able to provide the format that can understand bSDD, which is a JSON file. That's a bit technical, but by the way, that's not really important. The idea is really to understand that we've been able to go from this Excel to create this JSON format that is the import format for bSDD. Well, if we didn't need to have this step of Hansueli enriching the Excel files, there is another way to do it. Directly from define through the API, that's possible to create this JSON file and to populate directly the bSDD. So that's a little bit faster, but in our case, Hansueli needed to add some more information in the file. That's the reason why we have had this step in between. And then when we are inside bSDD, we will start to be able to work with it. So just 2 screenshots really quickly. So this is, for example, a global warming potential according to a standard, which has been inserted in define by following, again, structuration and processes quality insurance from this ISO 23386 standard. So on the left-hand side, you can see the full names, the names of the property in English, in Bulgarian, in Czech, in Danish, Dutch, and so on. And on the right-hand side, you can see what we call the attributes. That's metadata defining the property, where we can see that it has a physical quantity attached to it. So global warming potential, physical quantity corresponding to it is mass. It has a unit, kilogram CO2. It has a reference document with its name. Then we also know who has created it. We can check what is the expert who has reviewed it. And it also has a computer readable name. So left-hand side, names in different language, and right-hand side, name for computers, let's say. So from this in define, we have been through an Excel file. I won't go inside it. Hansueli already talked about it, but inside we will find names, definitions, global unique identifiers, so name for computers, an IFC link if needed, or it's if available, reference documents, and then physical quantity and so on. And at the end, when we push it to bSDD, we will see exactly the same information, but in the bSDD web interface. So here we are a property called global warming potential with its description. It says that that's the sum of some other indicators which are biogenic, fossil fuels, and land use change. And it is connected to the classification global warming potential. So that's the journey we have followed, we have made from those standards documents, paper sheets, PDFs, digitizing, structuring, following quality process insurance, and then pushing inside bSDD. So many ways of using it. The first one is to check what we have done. So I call it bSDD for humans, meaning that if you go to https search.bsdd.buildingsmart.org and you search for global warming and choosing the domain of EPD indicators, you will see exactly what has been pushed inside bSDD. So you can quickly check. We have a classification corresponding to global warming potential, and we have several properties. And if I click on the classification, I will see its URI. So that's the link you can exchange in an ISC file. We'll talk to that later on. The domain, the version, if it's active or not, and the list of properties corresponding to it. Something important that we can note here is that we have added, sorry for this example, here a link to an IFC entity. That means that some BIM tools, if they connect to bSDD, they will know that they can attach this classification and the corresponding properties to a specific IFC entities. Well, in our case, that's mostly all the components from the ISC files that can be attached to it. But here for this example, in bSDD, we have just said that global warming potential is related to IFC building, for example. So we will see how we can use that later on. And second way of using bSDD, which is in fact the real way, is by softwares. bSDD is firstly an API tool, let's say. So the idea is to make the BIM tools able to use and reuse the content and the definitions provided by bSDD. So in every BIM tools connecting to bSDD and asking from the API, searching for global warming potential, for example, they will receive this kind of information. I've just highlighted some of the information, for example, the grid of it, which is coming from the standard, the symbol, in this case, GWP, blah, blah, blah. Back the name, they will have the physical quantity. Here we see mass as a previous example. We can see the revision and version number and so on. So that's what the software using bSDD will receive when asking information from it. And we are at the end of the journey. Why did we do all this? Well, the main use case is because some BIM softwares, they will have to enrich an IFC file with semantic, and in our case, with properties and environmental impact indicators, coming from this bSDD. So next part of my presentation will be more to show you what we can do with all this information we have been working on since the beginning of this journey. So I will start with BIM data platform, which I've opened on another screen, but doesn't matter. Here it is. So that's a BIM data platform, classical. I will open a project, go to one IFC file, then I will open this IFC file, and here it is. So this is my IFC file with information coming from many different people. Then I will add my my bSDD plugin. Well, let's say I will launch it. And for the purpose of my example, I will select the whole building. And after that, I will tell my tool, I will connect to bSDD and say, hey, I want to have information about EPD indicators. So good news, in bSDD, I have a domain called EPD indicators. So I will select it. Again, the tool is querying bSDD, asking, hey, I have selected an IFC building. What do you provide me for an IFC building in this EPD indicators domain? And here, I will have the list of all the classifications, all the groups of properties corresponding to an IFC building in bSDD. And back to what we were talking about, I will select global warming potential. And here, the BIM tool will provide me all the properties that I can add regarding global warming potential to an IFC building. So for example, I will select this one and click apply to selection. And I will have a look at the indicators. So here I will find all the non-renewable primary resource with energy and blah, blah, blah. And as I select the thing, you can see on the left-hand side, something has changed in my building. And if I have a look at its properties, I will put them here to make it bigger. So that's the classical information I can find for my IFC building. But now there is something more in my IFC file. That's the EPD indicators properties. And here I can find the properties coming from bSDD, which are directly attached to my BIM model. So from this platform, if I export in an IFC file, now I will have those information attached to my BIM model. So I'm enriching my IFC files with all those inventory indicators coming from bSDD, full definition. And of course, I can directly add values if I know them directly in the tool. So that's the first tool I wanted to show you. And just to be sure that's not just a nice demo of one tool connected to bSDD, I will take another one. In this case, that's a tool coming from Aka. So same thing, I will open the same file in editing mode. Let me make it full screen. So second tool, again, Aka has developed a plugin for bSDD. So I'm opening the same file in here. And I will do almost the same. I will go there, say I want to use usbim.bsdd, and it is looking for, well, he's validating my model, so it may be a little bit longer. I don't know why it doesn't want to access it. He's checking my BIM model, so I have to wait a little bit. So maybe while he's doing that, I will show you the information about, that's the BIM model, which is still loading in. Yeah, here it is. So in this case, I think it will be easier. And I'm just looking for what is inside bSDD for this model. And here is the list of impact indicators, of EPD indicators inside bSDD, but from another software. So we've seen all those before in the previous software. So in here, I will change a little bit and have a look at the life cycle stages. And for example, on end of life stage, I will again select the wall building, and here I will say add those elements to my IFC building, and here I will have the list of EPD indicators corresponding to end life stage, deconstruction, disposal transport, waste disposal, and disposal total. Of course, I can add some value if I want to do it. And as I have added that, again, if I'm going to the properties of my IFC building, in this ACA tool, I will have well, the classical IFC information, but here you will see appearing IFC classification reference, which is end of life stage, with a grid coming from bSDD and with the URI of it. So if I'm copy pasting this URI in a web browser, I will have access directly to bSDD to this information. And I've done the same from global warming potential, for example. And here again, you will see the classification reference and the corresponding properties to it. So that's just a way to show you that we are coming from a standard with a set of different indicators. Then we have digitized them. We have inserted them in the tool following the right to standardized structure, push them into bSDD, and as soon as it is inside bSDD, it's possible to use them to enrich a BIM model and to add information corresponding to the needs from those standards. So we've seen it in a BIM platform, which is bimdata.io. We've seen it in usbim.browser from ACA. And that's time for me to give the floor to Christoph, who will show you in BIMQ how we can manage all those information in another kind of BIM tools. So Christoph, just giving the floor to you.
Thank you, Frédéric. So, floor is mine. I have to share my screen. So. Yes, as Frédéric explained, or maybe in before, short introduction, my name is Christoph Eichler. I'm from buildingSMART Austria. I'm working for the Vienna airport, and I'm responsible for the Austrian research projects from buildingSMART Austria. That's the reason I'm working together with Hansueli and also with Frédéric and so on. And my task is to explain to you how to use all these bSDD definitions inside a BIM application and how to integrate all these different properties in a BIM application. Maybe as a first introduction at the beginning, we use a tool called BIMQ from Germany, from the company called AEC3. This tool enables us to produce LOI definitions and also to implement different components from bSDD and also from the IFC specification. And in next step, to deliver all these things also to different BIM authoring tools and to combine the internal data structure with the external IFC data structure, which is an overall data structure for all participants in typical BIM projects. Because it's necessary to check all the IFC files as well, then they get delivered to others. We have also the possibility to creating checking rule centralized here from BIMQ. This is something we want to explain later on in next sessions because we haven't time yet to prepare everything for that. So today we have a look about how to collect all these properties inside BIMQ and how to connect a BIM application to BIMQ to produce an IFC file with the content we want to have. So as you can see, we will have a look also in BIM to have a look on our results we produce. We will have a look here inside BIMQ to understand how the definition of a data structure works here and how to deliver this stuff directly in a BIM application. We will have in a BIM a view directly in a BIM application. In this case, this is Archicad, but there are also other possibilities you can use, for example, Revit or BricsCAD, Allplan, Vectorworks, and so on. And we start with the first schedule. That's a typical Excel file we're getting from Hansueli. Frédéric mentioned that this is usually the way how to get the stuff from Hansueli. And first task for me is to translate this stuff directly inside BIMQ. This is no problem because BIMQ has a so-called Excel interface. And with this Excel interface, I'm able to import all the different components I need for a data structure. So usually the stuff I'm getting from Hansueli are only properties. This is a list of properties, and I have here the possibility with an Excel tool to export and import this list of properties. So usually this is only a question how to sort things in an Excel file to get them imported in the right way. The next thing we have to do when we got imported all these things here is to declare the content in the right way. So usually I don't get, for example, the right units in via these exports. So I need to declare the units actually more precisely. To be honest, to have here a fast procedure, we actually only declare everything here as a so-called IFC label. But in future, as we already saw it in the presentation from Frédéric, we need to hand over here also the right declarations for the value types. This is very important, but there is one issue you need to be attentive about. That's actually not all BIM applications at the market are able to work with very specific value types. For that reason, usually we work only with IFC label or with IFC number, because this is the most common way to work with internal data structures in BIM applications. So this is actually maybe a point we need to discuss or we need to think about more about in the next months, because there is a huge difference in the possibilities you have already in IFC with all the different value types and all the ISO definitions for value types and so on, and the possibilities you really have inside BIM applications. So this doesn't fit actually completely. So for that reason, we have here a little a more abstract solution to declare every content, every property actually here only with IFC label. What we also carry here is actually also the bSDD GUID. We don't have an working bSDD connection by now here in BIMQ, but this is something in development. So hopefully in the next months we are getting also directly bSDD import functionality here inside BIMQ to get the content exactly as we saw it from Frédéric a few minutes before already in other tools like BIM, for example. And what is also necessary to do here inside BIMQ, we need also to produce a mapping inside IFC, and we have to produce a mapping inside a BIM application. And for that case, I make it very easy for me. I only have a mapping here for Archicad because this is working here on my laptop actually. And I produce a very easy mapping inside IFC4 and producing, I say only, I have here several p-sets I want to use. I declare here all my different properties with this different letters here before with the prefix, so they are able to work directly here in the group of this p-set. I create also here some standard entities for the beginning. This is only a wall and a slab, so standard stuff, and domain where I want to put everything inside. Next step is to assign all these things to combine it in a model. So I have here on the left side all my different pieces for data structure, all the different things. And as you can see here on the right side, I combine all these things together in one working setup. So I say, okay, at first I declare my model here, my domain as a requirement. Then I put my different entities in it, put the different p-sets in it, and last step is to put all the different properties directly in p-sets. this strategy is very, very simple. But when you work with all these different pieces and put everything together, everything is really unique, everything is really clean. And so if you make a change here, you have to change in the data structure on every place. For example, maybe this is a stupid change, but if I say, okay, this is reference 3, for example, this change is done in the whole data structure immediately. Working with that single pieces and put all the assemble all together here on the in a working data structure is a lot of work if you have future data structures, but it's necessary to have a very clean, unique data structure. So when this stuff is done, we need to combine these clean data structure with different project stages or with different life cycle stages. For that reason, we got also here some stuff from Hansueli as a requirement. So these are the typical industrial life cycle stages from the international standards. We import these also with an Excel sheet. It's no problem. And in the next step, we combine this data structure with the different project stages. Looks more or less like this. So I say, okay, I want to have these different these different project stages here, or life cycle stages, as Hansueli would call it, or declare it. And all the different components we have here in our data structure are assigned here to one specific life cycle stage. This is reuse. I could also assign it to different others, but actually we know already that we need to get delivered all these properties here in the reuse life cycle stage, but we have no clue what's going on here and before. For that reason, we keep it empty and only declare it here in the last stage. So that's the reason for it. Okay, everything is done for that. Next step is only to create the different configuration files. So for that reason, I choose here the application I want to use. This is Archicad. I need to declare the stage I want to have, and then I can download here the different configuration files. One is the configuration file to add this data structure to the internal data structure in Archicad. The second one is to have a working IFC mapping for the internal properties up to the IFC properties, and one to map the internal classification to IFC classification or IFC entities and types inside IFC. I also can declare here that I want to merge my data structure directly with the standards template with Archicad, or I want to use an individual additional one. This is something I can handle how I would like to have it. Actually, I have it as an separate individual classification system, but I can also include this. So we have a look how this, now we switch to Archicad to have a look how this works. At first, if I want to add this classification, I have to go to the classification manager, import these things here directly inside. Looks like this. I already did this to save a little time and to make everything workable for sure. So usually when you start in Archicad, you have a clean classification system, which is coming from the software venture. Looks like this. I can include my stuff as well, but I did it in a separate way only to make it easier to explain. So I have here only two elements, as you saw it in my BIMQ configuration: one slab, one wall. And on the right side, you see all the properties which are already assigned by standards because of the configuration file with my two elements here from the classification. So this is the first step. When we go to the wall or to the slab, I can assign this wall or the slab here to my new additional classification system. Looks like this. Or I can say it's a slab or a wall, and so on and so on. And when I do this decision, I have here all the different properties available and can assign them with different values. Actually, we add here only example values 1, 2, 3. Later on, we will have a look how to change this very fast. I did the same here with the slab, but I declared as a slab here, as you can see here. So that's it. And Next thing which has to be done once a time, modify the IFC translator. It's also very easy. We need to modify the IFC translator for the classification, to translate the classification internally to external classification. To be honest, this step is not really necessary because this wall and this slab is already classified with the on board with the inbuilt classification system from Archicad, so everything works. So the only really necessary thing is to have property mapping from the internal data structure to the IFC data structure. This looks like this. This is also prepared and coming directly from BIMQ, so a lot of work I don't have to do. Here you can see the psets we declared in the BIMQ setup, and here are all the different properties which are linked here to my internal property setup. I can give you a small look about at these. Here are my Here are my TIM properties, and this property here is connected to the internal property from my TIM data structure inside Archicad to the external data structure here inside IFC. So very easy stuff. If you don't need to make everything by your own, when you only need to import the configuration file like this. So you only need to aware that here you check XML file, then you can choose this. This is the configuration file for it, and you can open it, and that's it. Okay, when you have done all these things as a first view, this looks like this in IFC. If you have a look here on the right side, you can see similar to the stuff Frédéric already explains. These are our psets we get here inside the IFC file, and you see also the 1, 2, 3 values in all the different properties. Exactly like Frédéric, I have the possibility here to check these against the actually available bSDD definitions. As you can see, actually, it's not identifying my properties as specific fitting ones to the bSDD. I think the problem here about is that I don't spell it in or don't have written it in the right way, how they are actually really written inside bSDD, because we wrote it here directly in camel case stuff, and here they are actually in a different way. We need to check this actually, but this is a way to verify later on also if that my stuff is fitting directly to the bSDD definition. So if I want to change something about the, if I want to change something about the values here inside, there's a very easy trick. I can produce schedule to export all these different values here directly in an Excel sheet. Looks like this. And instead of 1, 2, 3, I can put here by now everything with ABC inside. Only to make sure that we can see that there's a difference. Save this stuff. Put it back inside this file. Okay, works. This inside. And now we can make a new IFC export. Oh, sorry. Wrong. Okay, this is setup number 1. Perfect. Okay, IFC file is produced, and we only need to upload it directly here inside our ASBIM setup. So this is from 345. Didn't make it correctly. So now it. Oh, okay. I already uploaded it. All right. Well, I'm not quite sure. I did it in the right way. Maybe I did it too fast. I put it here in this container. Maybe that's better. To make sure Okay. Here it is. Need some seconds here to get prepared, and then we can have a look on it. And the values seems to be changed, and so on. The interesting stuff is this is the way how to produce an IFC file based on an bSDD or IFC data structure, which was developed here in the setup we used here in this TimBIM project to actually developing data structure for Timber. The interesting use case actually here with ASBIM is that there is a way to modify this data structure later on. So because if you have a real project, you not only have designers who need to produce the models and that's it. You also later on have construction companies or a manufacturer who needs to modify maybe the content in the file because they know the different life cycle informations about the products they put in the project. And so for that reason, using functionalities like the ASBIM browser are very helpful because you give them the possibility that they can change the models without having a real BIM authoring tool. And this is a really interesting possibility, actually. In former days, we used these Excel sheets to transport informations from external suppliers or from external manufacturers and so on. And by now you have the possibility that you can also deliver them an IFC file. They get access about the IFC file and they have the possibility here to change the stuff. So I think I changed it here on the slab if I'm going right. Yeah, there's the slab with ABC. So by now it's possible to change the stuff here. So if you are going here to the properties, we have the possibility here to change the properties and go directly inside and say, okay, this is not ABC anymore. This is, yeah, there's the value. This is XYZ, for example, and I changed it. Okay, that's it. Oh, that's typical presentation problem. I have no clue why it happens by now, but it doesn't matter. So, but in principle, I have the possibility here to change the stuff directly in the IFC file, and later on, I can store this IFC file and give it back, for example, to the clients, or give it also back to the general coordinator of the project, so he can compare the modified IFC files with the original ones and can release the stuff later on to the client, for example. So this was my part of the presentation. Thank you very much for the attention. And I think back to Dan in the studio.
Yes, thank you very much, Christoph, and also, of course, Frédéric and Hansueli. Bringing you all back into the stream now. We haven't had any questions from the audience, or comments, in fact. I guess this is a last call to the audience. If you do have any questions or comments, please post them now. And here we go. So Sergey has asked, is that a good idea to change the values? By whom lies the responsibility for the data after that?
That's the reason I explained that you need someone in the project, and usually you have someone in the project who is responsible to check the differences between the original IFC file and then the modified IFC file. And you have also the possibility to make sure that they are only able to change specific values they are responsible for. But if you, for example, if you need a product documentation, then you can give the access for specific properties only to the people who are responsible for it, and they have to put their values inside.
Yes, maybe from my side, this is true. Maybe you showed the possibility how to work on an IFC file in general, but specifically for LCA data, maybe we should also think about a reference document that each value has somewhere a physical or a reliable source. And so far we have those EPDs, which could be identified, maybe future with the GTIN from GS1, maybe also through another identificator. And we have also values for components, which are coming from databases like we have in Switzerland for the wood industry or other suppliers. So, but that's a good next question, right? We achieved some step, but we get new tasks. So it's actually good. And maybe we can show next time how we solve those things on reliability.
Yeah, and I think, Sergey, the reason for that possibility, or the effort about this possibility to change the IFC files directly is, in my opinion, that a lot of construction companies don't have construction tools or BIM applications to change the things directly. So if they have only access to the documentation models from the designers or the engineers, it's easier for them to put everything inside. So this is only actually because if you look for the timber industry, you have a lot of small companies and they don't have so much technology possibilities, and you have to do it very easy. And for that reason, this could be a very easy workflow to involve them in BIM projects.
That's great. Thank you both.
There's another guy.
There's another question here. I guess this is directed more towards Frédéric. This looks pretty amazing. Are software vendors involved in this process to develop a plugin for bSDD in order to have a direct connection? Working with BIMQ in between looks clean, but nonetheless is an additional step. In the case of ArchiCAD, it would still mean to directly import an XML.
I have heard there are several developments in progress, actually. Maybe, Frédéric, you know more about this. You should.
Yeah, we already have a plugin for SketchUp for bSDD. Neonex, they have a plugin for Revit. I think it has been shown in the airport room yesterday, if I remember well. There is a Geometry Gym who is also developing a Revit plugin. I know that some people in Graphisoft are thinking about it. Not sure where they are yet, but they are on their way to provide something. But back to what Sergey was saying, that's really interesting, because I agree with you, Sergey. It shouldn't be in an authoring tool that we are able to change the values for EPD indicators. For example, it should be in a specific engineering tool, also connected to bSDD, where you provide the right values, and then you save a new IFC file with a new owner history, and you can track what has happened to it. So, well, in our presentations, we've done it the easy way. That was just to show you we are able to bring back information from bSDD, attach this information into the model and exchange it. But yes, we have to solve the problem about who has the right to change it, how can we track the changes, how can we validate the change, and all those kind of things. That's really really important point. Yes.
And there's also very good points here about the IFC owner history, and I think in the thing you explained, and in combination with possibilities which are already available, this could be really interesting if you have a clean implementation in your software.
Yeah, if I take the example of another BIM platform, which is BIMsync, when you add a new classification reference on the BIM model, when you export the IFC files, you've got a new IFC owner history with information on who did what on the file. And that's really a critical part for me.
Yep. Yeah, I think the interesting activity, or the interesting thing about these activities, is that more and more from the basic concept of IFC still getting public and getting part of standard workflows. This is quite interesting, and actually many people wait for this a long time.
Yeah. I was looking at the chat, and yes, Sergey, I fully agree with what you write.
And by the way, just minutes ago, the new construction product regulation proposal was published from the European Union. And there's also the topic on environmental requirements, environmental properties. And there was written somewhere that, well, it's important, but there are not yet enough digital information and workflows available. So we already proved them wrong that actually it's very well possible. So maybe we still can convince them that we are working on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that this will really mean have impact on the reality of our construction.
Thanks for that update, Hansueli. We do have another question just come in from Agron. He's asking, does the bSDD work in the level of IFC building element part, since we would be working with building materials with the EPDs?
I think this one is for me. I need to check. What I would say is we have IFC building element parts in bSDD. So if we link our classifications, our objects to IFC building element part, it should work. It should. We have building element part in bSDD. So after that, it will depend on the BIM tools who are getting the content from bSDD. But if in bSDD we are saying this impact indicator is connected to building element parts, and it should work, yes.
Because this is actually the workflow, or maybe if I am allowed to share my screen, this is the reason why we actually working also in the way I explained, because actually when we creating data structures for material or in the implementation of material data structures in IFC, this is a combination actually from bSDD stuff and IFC stuff actually, or stuff from the IFC specification and stuff from bSDD. Most of the stuff we actually identify and co-builder define from the European product standards or European harmonized product standards doesn't fit directly to IFC, so we need to declare it in the bSDD. But here in BIMQ, actually we assemble all these pieces together in context of a building data structure. So this is actually the way how to do it for us. And this is the way why we need to declare all the material specific stuff in bSDD. And then combine it with the stuff, with the building components in an IFC-based data structure. I hope this was understandable. Otherwise, we meet each in reality in Vienna. It's easier to explain for you there.
Thanks, Christoph. Hansueli, I'm not sure if you've seen, there's a request in the chat for a link to the EU report that you mentioned. Could you have that to hand, or maybe it's a follow-up? If not, you're muted, Hansueli.
Yes, excuse me. I'm just looking for it that I can copy right now. I have the link now. I'm sorry. Yes, I copied the link in that now. So I saw it. So where can I write in the chat? Then I send it in our chat.
Yeah, thank you. I'll copy it across. There we are. It's in the chat for you now. Thanks for that, Hansueli. I can see we are just about a minute from the scheduled end of this session. It seems like we've come to a natural wrap up anyway. I'd just like to give the speakers an opportunity for any closing remarks if you would like.
Hansueli, I guess you're the one.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm actually very happy that we reached that goal, and that we have support from different sides. It is really a teamwork which enabled us to reach that milestone. And I think we already have further tasks on reliability of those data, but maybe that there are other peoples which are then better specialists for that. But certainly we have to follow this, and I hope we also get feedbacks from people who use it now, because it's now available to use and apply, and there are always things which we can improve. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Hansueli. So just a few comments coming in of thanks and just giving applause for the presentations today. I'd like to also thank the speakers for their time and for their presentations, and thank you to all the attendees for joining us. We do have one more session today, which is in the building room, just starting as we speak. And there will be one more product room session tomorrow morning. So please do join us for those if you can. And this session will be made available in the replay area within 24 hours. Thank you, everyone. See you in another session soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.